Wall Street is full of people who know the price of everything, but the value of nothing. Welcome back, everybody. This is part 2 of a 4-part series called How Do We Fucking Fix It? And today we're going to focus on financial reform. Let's get into it. All right, we're going to start with credit scores, which if you've ever seen the show Whose Line Is It Anyway? Drew Carey would come out and say, where everything is made up and the points don't matter. That's what fucking credit scores are. Back in the 50s and 60s, banks would create kind of their own credit scores as a way to determine who should get loans and who shouldn't. Makes sense, right? Problem is, by the time the 70s rolled around, more people could get loans. They were using it as a cover your ass to make sure that they didn't get sued for discrimination. No, we didn't not loan you money because you were black. It was because you had a low credit score. No, we didn't give you financing because you're a woman. It's because you had a low credit score. It was a way to discriminate without officially discriminating. By the time the 90s rolled around, everything was kind of consolidated, and you have 3 major credit score bureaus: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. The problem is today, credit scores are basically used as a way to benefit the lenders, not the consumers. And there is some legislation around helping the consumer and making sure you have access to your credit scores and that they can't do certain things. But overall, it's meant to help the financial institutions, not you, not me. How do we know this? Well, I'm sure you've seen a million times people say, I just paid off this loan and my credit score went down, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. If you finish paying off a loan, congratulations. You successfully paid off the loan. Also, congratulations. You now have more money because you're not spending monthly on that loan. Your credit score should go up. No reason why it should go down. The reason it goes down is because they like to use it as a tool against lower income people. Okay? Rich people, they don't have a problem. They have all the credit available to them, and they end up getting the 0.9% APR. Whereas if you're struggling, you're getting an 18% APR. Oh, I'm sorry, you have bad credit. We really can't give you. That's your only option. You don't have options. They know that. They have you by the balls, and so they can charge you whatever they want. What we need real reform around credit scores. There should be legislation, okay? And I'm not saying take it away from the private sector. I think the way this was developed is a good thing. I think having 3 different credit scores is a good thing. But there needs to be checks and balances, and the government needs to watch and make sure that we're not getting screwed as consumers. So let's overhaul the system. Let's create a panel who helps determine how can we adjust this to be accurate, okay? And to look out for the consumer and not just the financial institutions. So while we're there, let's talk about more financial protections for the consumer. Start with capping interest rates. There's no reason why anybody should have to pay 15, 18, 20, 25% interest on a loan. That's ridiculous. I'm not going to tell you what we should cap it at. I'll leave that for the professionals. But charging people exorbitant rates is predatory. Next is overdraft fees. Let's limit that. And I know there's legislation that's out there that is being enacted in order to do this. That is great. That is something that protects the consumer. Our goal here is to target predatory financial behaviors. I understand banks need to make money. Lending institutions need to make money. I understand that, and they should. However, we are now in the day and age where they're doing predatory things in order to facilitate that. We need to cut that out, and we need more protections for the consumer. Next up is loans against equity, and we're talking really here about margin loans and security-based lines of credit. Basically, if you make $1 million worth of salary, you're going to get taxed, let's say 40% on that. If you take $1 million worth of stock instead, and then sell that stock, you have to pay capital gains tax on it. Not going to be quite 40%, but it's still significant. Now, if you get paid $1 million in stock, and then you borrow against that stock using it as collateral, you end up paying no tax. Zip, zilch, not a fucking thing. How is that fair to anybody else? Now look, I get that wealthy people have loopholes, they have ways around the system. That's great, you figured that out. But fuck you, let the rest of us get some of that. So if we're going to play by one set of rules, you have to play by those same set of rules. All right, next up is a big one that I almost made an own video about. This one doesn't necessarily fit into the financial institutions like the rest of them, but I think this one could actually change our country for the better. It's removing the fiduciary responsibility to shareholders. What the fuck is that? Well, corporations have what is called a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders. They have to make their shareholders money. Sounds logical, right? Capitalism. Fuck yeah. Here's the problem. In practice, it's absolutely terrible. Picture this. Somebody founds a company. They treat their employees well. They provide a good service or a good product to their consumers. They end up blowing up, making a lot of money, and now the corporation is massive. Now what happens is they end up getting pushed out of their own company because they're not making enough money for the shareholders. So then what happens is they bring in new leadership whose sole purpose is to make money for the shareholders. What does that look like? Well, it means cutting salaries. It means cutting staff. It means, how can we make the product cheaper? We're not going to charge you less, but we're going to make it using cheaper parts. Hey, let's see how much we can jack the price up and people will pay. It's all about cutting costs as much as possible to make as much money as possible. And so employees end up getting screwed, consumers end up getting screwed, and the only ones that make out are the shareholders. That's not what American business is about. We need to change this. First and foremost, you have a responsibility to your employees. Second, you have a responsibility to your consumer. Then, third, you can have a responsibility to your shareholders. But if you don't treat your employees well, and if you don't treat your consumers well, you shouldn't have a business in the first place. All right, folks, that's our list on financial reform. Let me know what you think. Were these good? Are these insane? Is there any chance that any of these can happen? Particularly on that last one, I'd love to see what you think about that. Because I've long held that the fiduciary responsibility to shareholders is one of the worst things that has ever happened to this country. But we need real change. Thanks for joining us, everyone. If you made it this far, like, comment, subscribe to help get this party started. And remember, be good, stay humble, speak freely.